Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on just the Arrowverse as a whole. And as we should hopefully all remember, the post-COVID timeline when it came to the Arrowverse was filled with your farewells as we headed into the final seasons of The Flash and Superman Lois respectively, which of course wrapped up DC on the CW for good. But that was also mixed in with a bunch of attempted or planned spin-offs or continuations within this DCTV universe known as the Arrowverse. Of course, we had Green Arrow and the Canaries, Wonder Girl, and Painkiller. They were some of them. But another that actually seemed the most likely out of the bunch, funnily enough, due to actually sounding somewhat original and interesting compared to the others, was that of Justice U. Initially announced in January of 2022, Justice U would have starred David Ramsey as John Diggle, reprising that role from the Arrowverse, and this would have followed on from that guest star circuit he was doing on the Arrowverse shows that particular season where he was just showing up for one episode. Justice U would have been set within the Arrowverse, with Diggle, after years of fighting alongside masked heroes, embarking on a new mission to recruit 5 young metahumans to live undercover as freshmen at a prestigious university. There, he will oversee their education and train them to become the heroes of tomorrow. This series would have been showrun by Michael Narducci, who was working on Superman Lois at that time, with Greg Berlanti and Jeff Johns being attached as executive producers. But of course, stating the goddamn obvious, this show did not happen, obviously. We won't go over the specifics of why it didn't happen. I mean, short answer, the CW imploded. But what would have Justice U look like? You know, what characters would have been involved, both in regards to main characters, as well as maybe some guest stars or recurring characters that could have been mixed in. Well, let's have some fun, see what it could have been, if it did happen. But of course, let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on this, what characters you would have liked to see, what ideas for the show you would like to see, and just overall, would you have wanted to see this? Just give me a yes or no. Would you have wanted to see this show? And yeah, any other opinions down there. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video and want to show support, drop a like. Takes 2 seconds. So I want to break it up into sort of 3 things. Firstly, the plot, the main characters, and then sort of the guest / maybe recurring characters that could have shown up. So to start off with is simply the plot. Now, one thing we 100% knew about the show, or at least we should assume about the show, is a metropolis setting, because this is where Diggle and Lila were moving to after the events of Arrow Season 8 in the post-crisis timeline. So when that, Diggle found the Green Lantern box, he was heading to Metropolis, because that's where Lila got the new job. But the big question around that is, what Earth? Because it was originally announced as being in the Arrowverse, so presumably Earth Prime. At this time when it was announced, that Superman Lois change hadn't happened yet when they decided to make it on its own Earth, which was towards the end of season 2. So it would have been interesting to see if it went along with that change, but for the sake of creativity, we will keep it on Earth Prime alongside Flash, Arrow, the other Superman, I guess, from all those crossovers and just everything else post-crisis. But yeah, Metropolis setting. So we knew at least, I guess, this university would have been in Metropolis. Whether it is, Metropolis University or whatever it is, I don't know. A big thing when it comes to these shows is, of course, the villain. And seeing it would have most likely been a Metropolis setting, I guess it most likely would have been maybe a Superman villain that they could have used as the threat that they take on, maybe a twist on a certain character that could play into that university setting. Diggle wouldn't have put together the team in this setting for a villain, I don't think. I think it's more just, specifically to recruit a team. But when they're heroes, they sort of tend to attract villains. So it would have been interesting if maybe the villain or threat was under their noses the entire time, and maybe as a teacher or just another member of this university. If you have any suggestions, let me know in the comment section down below. I mean, if we look at Superman Lois, just to pick something there, we saw they used Milton Fine. Milton Fine could have been someone they used. It could have been Professor Fine or something like that at this school, and it ends up being Brainiac. So something along those lines, or even Toyman or a play on that. Though you wouldn't wanted to reveal their name too early, because you would have gone, well, they're going to be evil, aren't they? So yeah, but I could easily see them doing something along those lines. But speaking of that university, they say it's a prestigious university, but is it a prestigious university just for metahumans, or are they metahumans just going to a regular school? So is it more like Stargirl, where there's heroes that are going to a normal school, or is it something like a Gen V or the X-Men, where it's literally a school for people with powers? It could go either way for the most part based off how they describe this series, but they do emphasize undercover, which suggests that it could be a regular school, but maybe it's undercover at a metahuman school, but as a group. They're actually recruited because of who they are, and they're not really meant to be there, I guess, at that point, because, I don't know, they're the right age at that point. I'm not too sure, because it's, we get a blanket statement. We don't go too deep with the description for the show. But I don't know, what would you have preferred? I think maybe a normal school, just so at least the characters that we're with stand out like with powers, because it would be really annoying if you went to a metahuman school, you're with your characters, your 5 characters and stuff, and then there's like a character you see walking down the hall and their powers are really cool. It's like, hold on, why are we not hanging with that guy? That guy's got really cool powers. So maybe a normal school and they're the only people with metahuman powers. That might be the way to go. But with a story like this, you'd expect some struggles. And I think if it was a normal school, it would have been interesting not just to see the balance of controlling their metahuman abilities around normal people, but also maybe these 5 metahumans not being used to a big social setting, or at least one or some of them not being used to it. You would expect that the group would have been made up with a mixture of confident, averagely confident, and then like very unconfident people, some that fit right in, and some that are like immediately outsiders and stick out as so. But that also would tie into the powers and tying into those potential struggles. I think that they would have had it where maybe some, whether it's one or a few of the 5 metahumans had cool powers like super speed, teleporting, flight, or something like that, and then some of them, had some very like niche powers that were only useful in certain situations or weren't necessarily cool to use but were effective. Or maybe they were even like aesthetic. So like think of like Nightcrawler, like he's blue, something like that. So it made them stand out without even using their powers specifically. But I don't know, being blue isn't very undercover. So I feel like if there was anything there, it could be maybe they looked a bit weird. Maybe they were tiny. Well, like I say tiny, but maybe they were a bit shorter. Or maybe they were really tall. Maybe like they were 6'5", and that was like it tied into their powers or something like that. And it just made them stand out, which once again, not really going undercover if you stand out, is it? So maybe they would all look very average, and it's just really their powers where it stands out. And the final thing, Diggle's role in the show. Of course, you have those 5 metahumans. What about Diggle? He's meant to be like this mentor and guiding them and recruiting them and stuff like that. And if I had to think of it in regards to like him recruiting it, I mean, you just expect Diggle to go do that. But in regards to a mentor, maybe how he would be their guardian, if you want to put it, I would think maybe it's like Arrow season 1. When he's like chasing Oliver and his relationship with Oliver there. I could see that happening a lot, or there being a lot of parallels to these metahumans that would be in this show. So maybe think Diggle season 1, but a bit more of a experienced Diggle at the same time. But let's get into the characters for this show. Now, I've picked the obvious ones that would be in the show, but I've also picked out the 5 metahumans that I think would have been very interesting to see, because the thing is that it says that Diggle recruits them. So it suggests that Diggle doesn't just recruit from within Metropolis. He's goes on a bit of a road trip maybe to recruit the 5 heroes. That's all. These 5 heroes can be from anywhere in the world, or specifically, I guess, anywhere in America. But the 2 main ones you'd expect are obviously Diggle, and Lila. Lila's not mentioned, but she got the job there. So maybe she wouldn't be in every episode, you wouldn't think. But you'd expect Lila to be in the show in some way, shape, or form. But let's get into these metahumans. So the first one is the only one we saw in the Arrowverse prior to it. And I think she would fit very well. And it also would allow maybe a certain guest star to show up. And that's Avery Ho. And she would be a speedster. That's a simple one. We met her in The Flash, of course, at the end of The Flash season 9. She's one of the people that Barry chooses to get hit by lightning. Maybe they could have tied into this, I don't know. But regardless, she would have been a cool character to have in there. The next character is Miguel Barragan, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, who is otherwise known as Bunker. Now, his power is his energy construct, so think Green Lantern and what he can do with the ring, but they are like violet in color and they're made up of bricks. So they have like a brick-like texture to them, and that's what he does. And he usually, he can do whatever he wants with them. So he would have been a cool character and like would have been cool to see visually and stuff like that. The next character I have is Lorraine Riley, aka Firehawk. Just think of like a toned down version of Firestorm, essentially. So it's just her, like it's just Lorraine. It's not a combination. So she just doesn't have to combine with anyone else. But even her powers are toned down. Like she has I don't think she can like change things, I think, from memory. So, but she looks cool. So it would have been a cool character to have there. And it's a bit of a Firestorm aspect as well. The second last one is Maxine Hunkel, aka Cyclone. Some of you might know who she is because she was seen in Black Adam, and essentially she can create cyclones, control air, and she can fly using the wind or the cyclones she makes as well. So she would have been cool. And the final one, and I was trying to sort of get a bit of everything. It's almost a bit like Avatar, like all the different elements, but I went with Jackson Hyde, aka Aqualad. So I think Aquaman and Mirror combined essentially. So what you would expect from Aquaman and his powers, but Jackson Hyde can control water as well, like Mira, and also he has a water sword, which would have been cool. So I think those 5 characters there, it's a bit of a mixture. No one's really that similar. I think it would have been pretty cool. And also there's growth there to the characters. Like you could see like maybe Lorraine Riley has had like, maybe she just has like weird fire abilities or something at the beginning, and then she turns into Firehawk more. Miguel Barragan with his, energy constructs. Maybe he's only making like really small things, or maybe he can just create like a shield that goes over himself. He can't create something that he can actually use offensively. And, you could really, maybe the only one who maybe has like some decent control on her powers and can use them fairly well and like effectively is maybe Avery Ho, because it's just a speedster. But all the other people there are a bit more technical. Or maybe there's like one really experienced person who could be like Jackson Hyde, but he's maybe the most out of his comfort zone being in this high school or this university, might I say. So it would have been a very interesting dynamic. But let's get into these guest stars. And I only put 5 here, and I just put 5 here just because you could list as many as you want, but I put 5 that I think would work the best if you brought them in. One, actually the first one probably isn't the best one, but it was always a person I thought could easily be in there as a bit of like a mentor if they ever needed it, whether it was like they left Metropolis and had to do something, or it was within Metropolis. So I put Black Canary, Laurel Lance, I just think is like a mentor alongside Diggle as well would work. The next one is very scientific and I think would play really well, and that's Ray Palmer. I think him showing up would have been really cool. The third one's an obvious one, though it might have been a stretch technically to do it, and that's Superman, essentially just because it's in Metropolis. But this could have been one where you save it until like the finale for the season or something like that, or a special episode. So I think Superman showing up would have been cool. Bart Allen is an obvious one because in Avery Ho, I think him showing up for whatever reason that might be would have been really fun. And the final one tying into Lorraine Riley, aka Firehawk, would have been if Jax showed up. Of course, he wouldn't have been Firestorm at that point, but if he showed up and like as like a mentor thing, like Diggle was like, if like Lorraine was struggling with what was going on with her and there was similarities to the Firestorm thing, they could have brought Jax over. Of course, he was from Legends of Tomorrow, and they could have done some fun stuff there. So I think like all those other shows, like I didn't really care for Green Eye and the Canaries. Wonder Girl sounded sort of interesting, but very like surface level. Didn't really know what they were going to do there. In regards to a show that didn't happen, this was the one that I think had a lot of potential, where you could have like also had like a bit of an interchanging roster, like not necessarily a new group every year, but like 2 people could have left at the end of season 1 and 2 new people come in. It was a show that I think had a lot of potential. I'm a bit annoyed we didn't get to see at least 1 season of it, but the writing was on the wall for the show fairly early because we saw what was happening with the CW. So it's one of those like big, what if, but it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on all this stuff, what you would have liked to see. Would you have liked to see the show just as a whole? Let me know. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.